brought to you by Accenture Extended Reality. This is Field of View.
Hello and welcome to our new episode of Field of View. My name is Nick Rosa from Accenture.
And my name is Daniel Coliani from the Academy of International Extended Reality.
And as we said, this is a new episode of Field of View, where every week we interview SMEs and people that are operating in the field of extended reality and the Metaverse.
Yeah, I mean, today we've got someone who probably he doesn't just live in the realm of SMEs today. Someone that's done some really amazing stuff with the power of augmented reality for the Metaverse, I guess.
Absolutely. And we have a creative lead from Google, a person that has been working many years in the company and has been working a lot in the field of immersive technologies, especially in order to help and support campaigns and clients to use this kind of emerging technology for their marketing purposes and for their branding purposes.
Certainly, and born and raised in the French Alps and newly appointed father, Matthieu Lorrain.
Congratulations.
Have you on here.
Hi, Matthew. How are you doing?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm good. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. And thank you so much for taking the time to run the podcast with us. I know that we've been postponing this many times because of COVID, because of you becoming a father, because of work and so on. But finally, we made it. We are here and we're super excited about hearing everything about all the exciting stuff that you're doing there at Google.
Yeah, it's been a busy end of 21 for me, and excited to be with you today to talk about a lot of the projects we launched last year and what's coming for the new year.
How's the life as a new father for you? Is everything going okay? Are you able to sleep a little bit?
Okay. I keep saying it's a lot of love and very little sleep.
Okay.
So you trade here, but it's a good trade.
Fantastic. I can imagine, and a lot of nappies, I suppose.
Trying.
So Matt, one of the things that we do on this podcast is we like to give people an idea of the origin story of the pioneer, of the innovator, of the person who is in this journey. So it'd be really great to hear firsthand from you, I guess, how you got your start. And you can go back as early as possible as you want, or as relevant as you want.
Okay, let's do that. Well, my origin stories goes back pretty far. I would say about 20 years ago, actually. And so I was a young student, just arriving in college, full of dreams and excitement. And at the time, I was living in the French Alps. The French Alps have a lot of space, a lot of mountains, and
Beautiful.
so that's great, beautiful mountains, and so great grounds if you wanted to organize parties. And at the time, there was a really big wave coming from UK that really took over Europe, which was really that techno music. It's not the first wave of techno in Europe, but that was like one wave of underground rave parties being organized all across Europe. And so I was at the right place at the right time, kind of started really seeing that scene, joining that scene, trying to become a creator and organizer. And I became a video jockey. And so because I was in the Alps at the time where rave started appearing everywhere, that's how I get my first try at trying to transform my environment with interaction and visuals. That's pretty much what I was doing at a video jockey, taking over a scene, taking over a building, taking over an unexpected location, and using it as a canvas for stories and creativity. And so, yeah, that's really the starting point. From there, I taught myself design, interactive video. I changed my interest as a student, and I decided that I wanted to dedicate myself to digital creativity. And fast forward 20 years later, here we are. I am still somehow trying to transform my environment and using the physical world as a canvas. This time, not for techno music, this time for Google and Google's partners.
And this is fascinating. I mean, it's funny because we also have some common backgrounds, because you were doing a VJ. I've been doing DJing for in my past, so there are some crossovers I can see in our common passions. But what I wanted to understand also is how the evolution of your interest for visual arts and interactive digital arts then came into fruition when you were looking for your career path? How this evolution started, and how you found yourself in working augmented and virtual reality?
Yeah, it was not a straight line. I mean, it's never a straight line, right? But I can connect the dots today. But I from that techno scene, I was doing a lot of creative work as a hobby, if I may say. You know, I was like designing, organizing exhibitions, curating video arts, making videos, and I started studying more about media entertainment and the internet. It was still the early days. And so my first few jobs were all related to that, to music and digital, music download and digital. I actually ended up working on some of the very first generations of music download experiences, pre-iPhone in 2017,
Oh wow.
27, sorry. Uh, and that's from where how I actually ended up joining Google as an expert in media entertainment, but more focused on the business side, on the advertising side, on like ad strategy. And while there at Google in that initial roles, I realized I was missing the creative part of the work. I wanted to do proper creation, proper making, not just strategy. And I pretty much worked my way from the business side toward more creative technology over many, many years. Now, the reason why I actually ended up working with augmented reality, VR and immersive, it's funny. A lot of that comes from one of my mentor who asked me one day to explore augmented reality. He had a dream. He wanted to be able to recreate famous movie scenes in your own environments.
Oh, that's really cool.
He even had made like a video, like a dummy video, all fake, to show what it could look like. But he had no idea how to do this. And so I think we're like back in 2013, I think, 2013, 20, maybe 14. I remember him asking me, say, Matt, I want you to go explore that thing, augmented reality, and tell me what we can do creatively with it. What's funny is that I had seen augmented reality before, back in 2008. I've seen some of the early experiences, and I thought it was really gimmicky. I was not interested. I was not impressed. Yeah. I was like, yeah, it's kind of a gimmick. You have to print a paper, and it's just too many steps. But he changed my mind by giving me that that mission. I started really diving into, but wait, when can we actually use augmented reality with a purpose? When does it make sense? And since there, I've been, exploring more and more, diving more and more, understanding, what can be done from a storytelling standpoint, how we can engage with fans. And I've been excited to see, of course, the progress of the technology, because things are so much easier today to develop in AR than it used to be.
Are you still in contact with this mentor? Do you want to mention this person's name?
Yeah, sure. I mean, his name was Mike Yap. He was the founder of the Zoo. That was like the creative agency at Google for brands. And he was a pretty unique character, a 70 years old Californian surfer who was one of the first to have Photoshop in SF. In the 80s, and a very inspiring figure.
Beautiful.
And probably one of the oldest guy at Google also.
And he told you to start exploring augmented reality.
True, yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. It's crazy, right?
Sorry, go on, Dan.
Yeah, because I was going to ask this. I mean, back when you completed your master's degree in 2016 in digital media, 2006 in digital media, like what was augmented reality on the cards then? What like how different was it studying, I guess, digital media back then compared to like where it is now?
Well, my master, I had a master degree in digital media, where it was really more like studying the economics of digital media and digital media entertainment. It was not like a creative master. It was more like, how do you run digital media? How do you create organizations? But clearly, yeah, the augmented reality was not under my radar at the time. What was on my radar was much more interactive video, big screens, interactive installations, things like that. But it was a pretty logical steps, obviously, from having big screens or doing projection mapping to actually projecting visuals through a mobile phone camera. The leap creatively was pretty easy. A lot of the thinking was the same. Using the world as a canvas, that's the same story.
So
Yeah.
you've been doing also projection mapping with real 3D mapping of the images to the actual topology of the room where you were projecting, right?
I've been doing low quality prediction mapping in the early days that didn't look that great, but was exciting. And,
Okay,
and
okay.
clearly, and the thinking was clearly going toward that direction.
Okay, because there are a lot of companies that are operating in the area, and um, I think that is a very exciting way to let people experience augmented reality without the need of wearing any kind of device and any kind of glasses. Do you think that's mobile AR is here to stay from your point of view? I mean, you've been doing a lot of guidelines, I suppose, for the value of augmented reality for consumers. Do you think that the mobile version of us pulling out the devices is here to stay? Or do you envision that the future is near where glasses will be potentially more ubiquitous?
I imagine probably us having both for a while, meaning right now I see a lot of value for me of mobile augmented realities to augment an existing situation, so social AR, or to allow you to really right-click your environment, to be able to really point your camera at something in the physical space around you and get an engagement, search for it or compare it or get the price, visual search. Those two use cases I think are going to remain relevant, in my opinion, as long as we share selfies or as long as we actually have mobile phones in our pockets. I could imagine in the future, we keep saying in 10 years, so I don't know if it's going to be in 10 years. It's been 10 years, I would say in 10 years, but in 10 years, when maybe we'll all have some kind of augmented reality glasses, I could imagine that the role of the mobile phones might diminish a little bit. But I still think we have use cases where you eventually point your phone at something and get information. That's augmentation.
Or even
And
precise touch and precise interface that you can use with your finger. Yeah.
exactly. But
So
I just to finish on that, I actually believe that the distinction between what's on your phone, what's on your glasses, what's on your wall, what's sound are going to disappear. That's more the vision I see, where instead of thinking about a form factor, we think much more in terms of the whole environment around me being augmented, being connected.
And there's a whole conversation about the fact that the technology will really explode and will really become mainstream when the interface and the actual silicon will become more and more transparent to the user. And I truly believe that, for example, the fact that right now all the devices are very bulky and they're heavy, and you have the controllers that you have to put in your hands, are create a lot of friction for users to to adopt this kind of technology. What do you think?
I think, I mean, here you're talking about, I guess, mostly VR, and
Yeah.
I'm a fan of the latest VR headset. I have those. I've been playing with those. It's pretty impressive what you can do compared to the first Oculus. The reality, though, is that after having used them quite a lot at some point during the lockdown, a year and a half ago, now they are in a drawer, and I don't use them as much as I should. And I
Yeah.
have to putting something that isolates me from my environment is a barrier. It's not just that it's heavy; it's also that suddenly I'm totally removed from my environment, and I just had a baby, and I don't live alone. There's a bunch of barriers like that. I think putting a screen on your face is going to be a barrier for many people for a while. So I hope indeed that at some point it's going to be as easy as just wearing very light glasses. And whether you're like fully immersed or just augmented, the kind of efforts to set up, the whole process would be easier. I think there's a bit of a barrier now. We are in the age of exploration and experimentation, which is amazing. I have a hard time seeing, a lot of my non-technical friends, wearing a headset on a daily basis. Not yet.
And you've been working quite a lot with platforms. You recently launched a very interesting project on Snapchat. Would you like to talk about that project that you've been launching?
Yeah. So in that case, so using mobile AR, and so no headsets, just good old phone, using Snapchat also. we were privileged to work with a lot of very great partners. So we partnered Google and Google Pixel, partnered with Snapchat, Disney, and the studio Marvel, and with Verizon.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of partners in the mix, and the goal was to promote the new Pixel 6 device
Mm-hmm.
in partnership with Verizon 5G networks. And so all that big family pretty much came together to bring to life an exciting AR experiences that could really showcase the capabilities of the phone, the Pixel 6, but also the capabilities of 5G networks. And so what we decided was, well, if we can work with the Avengers and superheroes, what if we could actually unlock one of the oldest universal dream, which is pretty much having superpowers? When we see superheroes, we all get excited because of their powers. That's what makes them unique. That's what makes them stand out. And so with AR, as we can detach ourselves from reality and gravity, what if we could give those powers to the users? And so that's what we did. We launched 5 different filters. Each filter was a character. So like, for example, Doctor Strange, or Thor, or Captain Marvel. And in each filter, you had multiple effects. And what's interesting is that those effects were all powered by the very latest Snapchat API.
Nice.
So a lot of machine learning, a lot of, we use object recognition. You can, for example, change the size of food. If you find a pizza, in one of the filters, you can change the size of the pizza for real. A lot of hand tracking, body tracking. You can change your environments. We had a lot of fun playing with the whole toolkit.
So I guess, a lot of that sounds really fun and actually exciting to put together. But my guess is that working with IP like that can be pretty difficult sometimes to navigate. I mean, what kind of challenges did you face when you have to bring, IP like that into the world of augmented reality?
Well, you have to be extremely respectful when you work with that kind of IP, and that was I've been working with big brands that have like very strong IPs several times in my career, so I was aware of that. I remember we worked with Louis Vuitton, for example. They have very high expectations for their guidelines. And the year before, we had done a project with Lucasfilm on Star Wars, so it was a good training ground on the whole idea of like a canon and how you follow the canon from a franchise, but still find a space for creating something new. On the Marvel projects, we work with a great agency called Trigger, based on the West Coast, and they did a fantastic job of research. With Trigger, we did a lot of research on every single character. So every single character, we obviously watched the movies many times, and we broke down every single superpowers they had, and we broke down all the canon. And that's how we were able to work efficiently. And that's how we were able to pretty much come with relevant superpowers that we brought to Marvel, and that Marvel loved because it was really true to the story. So that's a bit of the learning, is if you want to work with those big franchises, you need to be very rigorous and disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
But you pretty much need to do your research and do your homework, and that's how you get it approved.
Yeah, no, I think because it's also interesting. So when I've spoken to some brands, I guess around when they want to explore AR as well, has there ever been any conversation or concerns around, I guess, giving the user the freedom to place that IP wherever they want in the real world? I mean, because obviously they could be anywhere, and I've spoken to some brands in the past where they've brought up the fact that, oh well, actually us sticking our brand or our IP or logo on this other person's building or this other person's kind of environment poses some challenges for us. I don't know if you've had that before or how you navigate that.
I guess that what Daniel is trying to understand is the way that you're managing brand safety when you're launching this kind of campaigns.
It's a great question. We always have that question because indeed, again, Disney or other big media entertainment companies, they care a lot about their IP. They care a lot about their characters. They don't want them to be associated with anything weird, offensive. And so usually the way we address that is by telling them that fans today, if they want to take your IP and mix it with something weird, they'll do it anyway. So you have to accept that even if you try to control your IP, it's going to be somehow mixed with the world or used as a meme. But you can be smart about it. And what we try to do is to make sure, though, that within our tool, we don't necessarily enable unexpected or inappropriate behaviors. We also, because we are on social media platforms, in that case, Snapchat, one first line of defense we have is Snapchat's own terms and conditions. If you don't respect Snapchat policy and push something considered offensive by Snapchat, the content will be taken down anyway. So we don't have to regulate. We can rely on those platforms' own regulation. But we get that question a lot. And again, it's a process to let them know that you have to let go some of the control. You have no choice, but you can be smart about it. And you can give the right tools so that at least the content is high quality.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I guess, yeah, it's this idea that you're working, when you have a AR technology and you're giving it in the hands of the users, you're working with the user, right? You're not just presenting the user with a video or something like that. This is something that they can actually touch, they can actually change, they can work with.
Those are creators' experience. You create setup for fans to create their own experience with it, their own content with it, which makes it more viral. That's what's exciting, but you have to keep that mindset in mind. You're not creating a perfect experience. It's going to be seen as isolation. You're creating more like a stage that the fans are going to bring to their own space and play with.
Yeah.
I have a question related to the platforms, though, and thank you for this answer. This is super interesting. My next question is related to the kind of strategy that you think that brands should adopt, because right now we are talking more and more about web-enabled AR. There are platforms like 8wall or even Blipar and Zappar and so on that are moving towards that direction. That obviously is way more integrating in the way that Google is doing their campaigns in a classic way. You have a banner, you have Google Ads, you click on that, and then eventually the augmented reality experience opens up directly from your browser. And obviously 5G networks will enable this even more, because the kind of compression and the kind of speed of the lines in the network will enable even more complex scenes to be visualized. Now, my question is, from a strategy perspective, does it make more sense to allow brands to access those web tools and then allow the user to select the kind of social media platform to share the content that they create using those filters? Or you believe that it's better to control the experience on a platform level, like Snapchat or other platforms that are already out there?
I think your question touches on the number one challenge we've been dealing with AR for all those years, which is really distribution.
Yeah.
And how do you make access to the experience as easy as possible for the fans? How do you bring that content where there are many fans? Well, on the other side, trying to get the best possible technology available for the experience. And it's been an endless discussion and exploration on my side for years. And for many years, we were pretty much stuck in apps, as you know. We could do pretty cool stuff with game engines, but then promoting an app is so difficult. Getting people to download an app is difficult, if it's a one-off especially. On the other side, we look at web, WebXR and WebAR. I'm a big fan of open formats.
Yeah.
I always like that idea. What
Same.
if it was just you were just one click away, 1 year away from an AR experience? There are very impressive progress made by some startups those days that provide the toolkits, and we see them being used a lot, especially for one-off campaigns. For me, I don't think there's like the right distribution channels versus the wrong. That really depends always on your goals. If your goal is to optimize for the best visual quality, you obviously should develop an app, because you're always going to have a better kind of access to the hardware and the visuals. If the goal is to distribute, is to optimize for reach, in some case, WebXR is a good use case. In many, is a good approach. But in many use cases, social networks are a good one, because they have existing audiences. So I'm
Right.
kind of like I'm open to all of them. The challenge I've seen with WebXR is sometimes just the fluidity of the experience and the quality of the 3D content might be slightly lower than what you can do with an app. And the toolkit also might be a bit more limited than what you can do with a social platform. I give you an example working with Snap. We're able to tap into Snap's machine learning toolkit, which is
Of course.
really impressive. It's incredible what we've been doing there. You have a lot of options, and it works straight out of the box. I would have never been able to do that if I was using a browser. Now, looking forward, though, for me, the next really big channel that is going to solve a lot of problems, I think, is really cloud streaming. 3D pixel streaming, and that ability to run 3D content in the cloud and then stream that content on your device, whether it's 3D or AR 3D. For me, that's going to be the game changer. We start to see some of those services appearing in gaming, and Google has Google Stadia. I'm now playing games on Google Stadia on my laptop, and it works really well. So we're getting there. So I think that's going to probably bring the best of both worlds, the ability to have extremely high quality content running in game engines, but in the meantime, having an experience that hopefully you'll be able to unlock just with a URL. So for me, that's where we're going. And once, it will take time, same way that it took time for video streaming 10 years ago to really come. But at some point, it's going to almost redefine the whole discussion around what it should be web XR, what should be an app. Well, it won't matter anymore. We're going to have a hybrid solution.
Awesome. Super interesting. Thank you so much for the answer.
I'm wondering, so obviously that's kind of touching on the future there, but in the now and the here, I mean, when you do speak to brands around these kind of campaigns, what kind of metrics are they actually hoping for? I mean, what kind of levels of engagement do they want to make this a reasonable, expense on their marketing campaign?
I mean, I can't give you like a specific number.
No, don't worry about specifics.
But obviously they look at how many absolute users will have engaged with the content, and they care a lot also about virality, and are people engaging with it? How long are they engaging? Are they creating content with it, and are they sharing their content? Because AR is mostly is a camera experience by definition, it is a creator experience. So the vast majority of the AR projects we don't do just AR, we do also 3D work, right? But when it's AR, when it's in the camera, we really have a high incentive those days to try to drive for content creation. And so the percentage of users who open the experience and then created content and shared it is a key metric that people care about.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, are you seeing brands willing to, I guess, be a bit more creative and be a bit more, I guess, risky in terms of trying out things that haven't been done before, and I guess not just for the sake of being a gimmick, but for the sake of pushing the boundaries a bit, but also doing something that can receive those levels of engagement that they want?
I mean, clearly, I like to think in terms of immersive content. So it's AR plus 3D plus VR. And that's really the whole space we discuss when we talk to partners. And those days I talk more to content partners than brands per se. So a lot of the people I work with will be even movie studios, streaming platforms, or sports leagues. And clearly, what's interesting is a lot of them now, they have like a few years of experience working with those technologies. When we work with Disney, when we work with the NBA, who is a partner of Google right now, they've done many things in the space. It's not the first rodeo. And so they come with learnings, sometimes great learnings, sometimes learnings where I might disagree, it depends on their own experience, but at least people come much more with a point of view. So on one side, I feel in the industry, there's a certain maturity and understanding of what makes sense and what doesn't make sense at all. What's interesting, though, is that in the meantime, there's a sudden huge influx of interest and passion for the metaverse that is creating, in the meantime, that opposite effect, right? How many minutes before talking about it? But what the metaverse is doing is that it's creating a huge interest suddenly for the space of immersive, which is good. But also somehow I'm seeing a slight reduction in critical thinking and acceptance of what is good is what is not, because everybody's trying to kind of like rush for it. So we're in the interesting situation now where if you work with brands in their creative teams and the technical teams, you get to talk to people much smarter, much wiser about AR than many years ago because they've been doing the work, they've been trying things. And in the meantime, on the surface level, though, you hear a lot of noise about low relevance, very gimmicky immersive use cases. So we have a bit of both those days. A lot of noise, but if you kind of like can cut through it, very interesting explorations from partners, from brands, because they've been doing it for years and they got smarter at it.
Can I ask you a question about the metaverse now? Because I mean, we mentioned the magic word, and I think that we are going down the rabbit hole at the moment.
no.
So there is a lot of interest about the metaverse, and the world is very often misused to talk about game worlds that are completely closed, that have their own ecosystem, maybe not even based on blockchain, and they don't have any kind of connection with augmented reality and the real world. Do you think that this kind of misunderstanding of the technology is going to be a problem for the technology to explode? Or do you think that the fact that people are just talking about it is opening the doors that before were very much closed for brands and company to adopt this kind of immersive technologies?
It's a good question. I don't know what I think about it right now. On one side, I see the benefit of using compelling labels to drive adoption or to kind of drive stories around the technology.
Yeah.
And you could argue that the metaverse is a convenient shortcut into where there's a lot of things coming and the immersive is going to be great.
Yeah.
In the meantime, where I see potential challenges, first, I don't know how old you were when you read Snow Crash. I read, all those cyberpunk books fairly young, and I grew up with it, and I was excited by Snow Crash. But whether it's that one or Ready Player One, for me, the metaverse is a dystopian idea. It's an escapist idea.
Exactly.
Ready Player One talks about a world where life is so horrible in Columbus, Ohio, that the character would rather live in a virtual world, in an artificial world, because
True.
reality sucks. Same with Snow Crash. And even if I get people say, yeah, but it's a term that is broad and it's not just about that, words have a meaning and they create expectations. And the one thing where I'm like slightly challenged right now is like, do we truly believe that escaping and living in the digital world is desirable? Do we believe that's a desirable future? Is it what we want? I get it that we could do it. Sure, we could live in a 3D world and I could look like a unicorn, and because it's pixels and not atoms, I have a lot of visual freedom what I could do. But is it what I want? Is it that what I want for my kids and so I think beside the term metaverse, the one, it's good in a way that a lot of people care about immersive. Suddenly it's bringing funding, it's bringing passion, it's bringing interest. On the other side, I feel like I hope we can drive the discussion toward the why, and why should we do it? Why is it a good thing? And we all believe that technology is going to play more and more a big role in our lives. But this time, can we get it right? And can we proactively think about what's good and what's not for humanity? And can we also try to proactively anticipate what other terrible things people might do with it, and how do we build to prevent them from happening? I'm a bit concerned by the lack of critical thinking now, and it's more like, oh my God, that's the future, let's do it. And I don't want to have a uh-oh moment in 10 years from now.
From one side, big ups for what you just said. This is exactly in line with what I think. And it's important that as we talk about the metaverse, and just to reiterate the concept, the metaverse is a vision, is not a thing. It doesn't exist right now. It's something that is going to be built probably in 10 years from now. And everything that is shown as the metaverse is a proto vision of what the actual potential global vision of the metaverse would eventually be in 10 years from now. And nobody knows if this is going to be exactly like we envision it, because when we were envisioning a world with everybody with a mobile phone, wasn't exactly like the one that we have right now with Snapchat, Tinder, and Uber. It was a completely different vision. So, I mean, it ended up being completely different from what we envisioned it. And everything that we are using right now in terms of artifacts that are connected to the metaverse, like NFTs, are actual primitives of this digital vision. So, I mean, like the website of 1994 that were basically glorified brochures, these NFTs and the virtual world that we're using right now are going to be the primitives of what is going to be this metaverse in the future. Now, my other question for you is, and we are going on a little bit uncharted territory here, and this is a bit...
just before you go into that question, because I thought it was really interesting, because Matthieu, you're talking about this, the importance of the metaverse being, I guess, more than what people are just perceiving it to be right now. But that's why you also created I guess, well, you're part of your satire, I guess, a collective of fake artists, right?
Yeah, I think you're talking about a personal projects I did with my collective fake artists. We launched a project called Pyramid NFT, which was a satire of technology, and it was the first NFT platform allowing you to live forever, unlocking immortality. And so it was a satire of technology and how technology turns often into a cult-like type of things, but also how America has that long history of gold rush and optimistic narratives around new business opportunities. And what's interesting is that, as much as I think there are a lot of interesting things going on in NFT, you could also feel a bit of that American tradition of the gold rush and American tradition of grandiloquent vision happening there. So that project, that is again a personal project, was for us a way to kind of tap on the way technology is being used in narrative in American society, and try to have a bit of critical thinking about it. Back to the metaverse, I think it's great that there's interest for immersive. This needs to come with critical thinking and not just blind optimism. And we need both. And so I'm trying to bring a bit of the critical thinking with my personal creative work.
And you recently launched this project. That's how it's going. Can you tell us a little bit if the project is getting visibility?
Pyramid? Yeah, I mean, it was launched in September. What's funny is that we got banned from a lot of platforms because sometimes platforms would not understand that it's a satire. It looks like a plain pyramid scheme because we designed it that way. We designed the whole experience to look horrible. You had to bid with clicks. The only way you can bid for your NFT in Pyramid NFT is by clicking, and so the more clicks, the higher you bid, and the winner of the bid is going to be turned into a proper NFT. We're gonna freely scan them, and we're gonna then mint that. So we're still actually getting more bids, but we were excited to be number one result on. There's a Reddit board called Internet is Beautiful. That is one of the biggest Reddit channels out there. And we were number one whole day, so we went viral. And then at the end of the day, we got excluded from it.
Oh no!
We haven't done anything because some of them moderators somehow thought we were a real pyramid scheme. And the same happened with MailChimp. We tried to send an email of the projects to all our friends with MailChimp, and MailChimp suspended our account. They thought it was a proper grift, a proper
They
scam.
thought it was phishing and scam. Oh my god!
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, we had designed it to make it that way, to make it look like a little shady, but it was not. We are not scamming anyone.
Okay, now I would like to go back
Nick,
to the metaverse
jump into
conversation.
your deep, because I was going to say this is Nick's provocative corner now, so you gotta prepare for that.
So my provocation is: do you think the metaverse should be a platform for free speech, or do you think that some topics should be banned and moderated, as finally some modern social media platforms are doing to avoid hate speech and neo-Nazi behaviors and all that kind of horrible stuff that we've been seeing in the last 5-10 years?
I mean, it's a tough question, but first, I much more believe in ambient computing than the metaverse. For me, the metaverse is like the forest hiding the tree for hiding the forest. And when everybody now is looking at the metaverse, which is that broad terms talking about all those immersive computing expenses together, I'm thinking, well, no, the real future for me, I believe, and the one I desire is, I'm not sure how we're going to call it, but that's ambient computing. It's a world where it doesn't matter anymore if you're interacting with information on a screen, on your glasses, on your kitchen stove, on your fridge, or with your voice. It's a world where somehow physical and digital environments are increasingly merging, and that gives you much more power to interact with your physical environment. So first, I want to put that out there. That's what I think is the future. And the metaverse is a part of it. But I actually think ambient computing is bigger. Now to your question, I feel like your question touches on what I discussed before. We can't just build tools. We can't just build technology, drop it out there, and say, that's it. I did my job. Society, go play with it. I think we saw it with social networks. I believe we have a role to proactively, the way we build products, the way we design them, the way we gamify them, the way we pick metrics.
Yeah.
That's, I think, an important part, the way we pick metrics to optimize against as product teams. All of that is going to be critical in shaping the positive and negative impacts of those platforms. And so there's a responsibility, in my opinion, a proactive responsibility to think about what could go wrong and what are the tools that can be built, hopefully proactively, and iterated against to prevent any kind of behavior that hurts society. So then I think there's a bigger question, which is, of course, you shouldn't do anything that is illegal, but there's beyond illegal, there's a moral, there's ethics, there are things that might be legal, but might not be ethical. So how do you prevent those things from happening, even they are purely legal? I mean, that's a question for a lawyer. There's a lot at stake when you are in those big platforms of like what you could do. But at a philosophical level, at least I can answer you. I believe we should be proactively trying to prevent any kind of harmful behavior, and we can't wait for it to happen. We need to proactively think about what could go wrong.
And I have a follow-up to this question. Thank you for your answers. Don't you think, though, that as an artist, and knowing that artists throughout the centuries, and even right now with artists like Banksy, they've been pushing their own message about social equality and change for the better, and inclusion, just pushing the boundaries of what is legal and what is not. Don't you think that's not allowing that kind of expression in those platforms will cut off the voice of those artists in the future?
I mean, I'm not saying this should be cut. I'm not saying. What I'm telling you is that if you look from the perspective of a platform, you obviously have to follow the law.
Like what happened with you. Like what happened with you. I mean, what happened with your project is kind of an example of what I was talking about, right? So the rules of those forums.
It's funny in that case. It's more I think the topic's more is like, it's more debate on like the automation of moderation. And if you want to moderate content, I think content moderation is necessary in many cases.
Everywhere, of course.
Because you do something that is hurting society or is hurting users, you need to have tools to moderate the content. When you have to do that at scale, you need to find ways to automate that moderation with millions of users, and that's a very hard problem. It's one of the main use cases of machine learning, obviously. And unfortunately, when you try to do that at scale or one fit all, you end up building tools that are imperfect, that are as perfect as possible. And so in my case, with Pyramid, it's a satire. There's all subtleties. If you just look at keywords, you might think it was like a fake pyramid scheme. Of course, it was not a piece of art. but I can't blame platforms for not being able to see through this. I understand the why. I think that's part of just the structure, but I don't think, again, that we should, proactively censor those things. We should just need to accept the reality that sometimes they're totally imperfect and they don't realize it's art. But there are a lot of our, I was not censored. It's just one tool that allow us to send an email. I had alternatives. I had other options. I think that's also critical. You need to have options.
So when we talk about options, I guess there's this interesting conversation when it comes to, these platforms, and when deciding what platforms you want to use and stuff, of these, like, I guess, walled gardens that exist at the moment. So I mean, I'm interested to get your opinion on, the platforms that are out there in terms of, that high level concept that they are that they need, that for a true metaverse to exist, we need to be able to allow cross compatibility between platforms and between, environments like this. I guess, how do you perceive that at the moment, and what would you like to see?
I heard that idea of like the metaverse being, that accumulation of all the different 3D environments and different scenes, and for the metaverse to be a true metaverse, it needs to be all interoperable. And I think the vision is great. I like that it goes back to also, the vision of the internet as like a fully interoperable and compatible platform. So for me, that's good. I think the more you can give people freedom to innovate and not being stuck into one or another walled garden, the better, which is again why, the browser is such an amazing technology. So I think that's positive. On the other side, there are like very strong challenges. I don't even understand all of them when it comes to engineering, to create compatibility between different 3D experiences, and compatibility between different game engines. So there are probably a lot of hard problems that need to be solved. And sometimes when I hear about people talking about NFT and the metaverse, they might slightly underestimate those challenges. It will take a while. I'm very excited though to see some startups like Ready Player One and what they were doing with avatars. This idea of building, like an avatar that can be used in multiple platforms as your own personality, I think it's a great idea. It's funny because it goes back a bit to like API thinking. API, are amazing inventions because they allowed for that some compatibility or in terms of infrastructure and services, and be able to use one login, be able to retrieve content from one API to another's. There was actually a bit of a golden age of APIs a few years ago. I don't know if you guys remember all, when the social graph came out, for a few years, we had a lot of very interesting kind of customized experiences using the social graph to create personal experiences. I remember the Museum of Me by Intel, for example, a few years ago. So I hope we're going to see more of that with the metaverse also, like kind of API thinking where you can tap into different platforms to pull assets, to pull data, to create something very custom. Openness is good. It's always good.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, if there is this idea of I feel like I've said the word metaverse too many times in this podcast already, but this idea of a metaverse is this idea of it being ubiquitous and being all around us and ingrained in our daily lives. How do you coming from I guess your marketing background and that brand perspective, how do you strike that balance, I guess, between integrating marketing campaigns into a metaverse environment, but also not infringing on a user or on a consumer in terms of in those environments as well?
It's a great question. I'd say I'm lucky that those days I do much less advertising or marketing and much more like content experiences. So there's a shift in how I'm approaching things because I'm building experiences with content people are actively looking for. Like people want to consume Disney content, they want to consume NBA content. So it's much less of an interruption. The thing with marketing is very often can be, and advertising can be an interruption. And so you need to be very respectful of the users if you're going to interrupt them to tell them something. The vast majority of people who are working in that space, in the immersive space, have seen the movie Hyper Reality.
Oh, yeah.
By Keiichi Matsuda.
Keiichi Matsuda, yeah.
such an amazing movie. What I'm actually, it's crazy those days I'm seeing this movie is a total critique of what the metaverse could become. It is dystopian on purpose. It is very well made, and it shows really what could go wrong. What I think is amazing is I start seeing recently, both in China and I think also in Italy, a few movies being circulated that are total ripoff of Keiichi Matsuda's film and vision of a world with like AR everywhere, except that in this case, those ripoff are telling that as a good thing. It's like, whoa, look how awesome the future is going to be. Everything is going to blink, and there will be billboards everywhere, and you're going to have marketing overlaid on every single aspect of life. So obviously, we have a pretty well-defined understanding of what the nightmare could be if we are not proactively trying to address the risk of marketing and advertising in the metaverse. The nightmare would be way too much stimulation, way too much brand everywhere, and no one wants it. So to answer your question, I think that if we bring advertising into a physical space, whether it's a physical or virtual physical space, we need to be even more careful of how we're going to interact people and what is going to be the right amount, because not only it's not ethical, but also I think users are just going to start disconnecting and stop seeing the ads. There are too many ads. Your brain can only process that much information. We are already at saturation in our modern lives. So if you just push more messages and more messages, I think people just will stop seeing it, will stop noticing you, will stop caring. So it's actually no one's interest to overwhelm people with too many messages. And so I feel the future is a place where we're able to serve the right messages at the right user, meaning a message they actually care about because it's really something they wanted or they needed.
So do you envision the future of this kind of technology? And I'm talking about AR, immersive, but anything that can be experienced as in first person. The beginning of creators and creative to become more conscious about topics like neuroscience, of behavioral science, or even philosophy. One of the things that I was discussing with my global lead at Accenture, with Dan Gunther, is the fact that I think that probably in the future we may need to stop hiring technologists and creatives and start hiring more philosophers or anthropologists or sociologists, because as the technology will become more and more similar to what is the real life and the way that we interact with between people, and more intimate to that layer of perception that is our own body. I mean, we not only we have to be respectful of the user, but also we have to be conscious of the mechanics of interaction with other people, but also the kind of purpose of action that those people will have in the metaverse. Why do I go to a specific place? What gives me meaning about having this experience? Why this kind of experience, or this kind of digital art, or this kind of branded experience is meaningful for me and can really change my life for the better, not just because of information that is shoveled into my brain because it's paid by a brand. Do you agree with that?
I don't know if we need to stop hiring technologists, but I agree that we need to hire more.
No, never stop
Nick,
hiring.
Matt doesn't want to be out of a job, Nick.
What are you saying? No, don't do that.
No. I wasn't saying stop hiring. I would say we should. We have technologists and
that's what I heard. But
sorry about that. Yeah,
that was. We got a recording. We can play we can have a replay. But no, I think at all time we should have hired people in general, whether they're engineers or designers or product managers, who have a strong sensitivity for human behavior and human psychology. I think it's becoming more and more important because of the role technology is playing in our lives. And now that digital technology is leaving the screens to take over our space, to be everywhere, it's becoming even more important. But I would argue that from day one, I think it's been a miss from a lot of companies. You don't want to hire people who are not just amazing design talent or just amazing technical talent. You should be indeed a requirement to have a certain sensitivity for human behavior. I agree also that we should probably have more, whether it's probably a UX function or it's like a creative strategy function, but
Yep.
on people who have the soul of the brain of an anthropologist, I agree with you, or a sociologist, and that think not just in terms of user flow, but also think in terms of user emotional journey and impact on society and impact on community. Detaching too much the technology and the product experience from society is, in my opinion, one of the reasons why we ended up with some of our tech harming people, is because no one meant, oh, we're going to build something that harms society. I think it's very rare. I think it's more sometimes people getting excited about their user journey or their feature and failing to look at the bigger picture. And so we need that. We need to keep looking at the bigger picture of why should we build this? Is it good for society? What can we do proactively to avoid potential harm?
I agree with that. I mean, it's a good point. Dan.
Okay, well, look, I think just to wrap things up, I mean, we talked a lot about the future, but I'm just interested to understand from you two things, because we have a lot of people that listen to this podcast or watch it that are building their own applications, are starting their own companies, are interacting with different people in the space. Just interested to know from your perspective, your background, and obviously you manage a team of different people and stuff in this space, is I guess what advice you would want to give to them, I guess if you were in their position.
I think the technical advice is if you can learn 3D. I almost feel like I came to, I mean, I'm learning 3D a little bit, but I was more from a 2D initial generation, and I wish I had started learning 3D and tools 15 years ago, not now. It's the longer you wait, the harder it gets. That's for immersive. But I mean, back to what we discussed before, I think with Nick, like whenever you're thinking about a campaign, a product, an experience, always bring it back to the human experience and the humans and what are they going to feel. As a creative, connect to the human experiences through the story, but go back to that whenever you can. What am I doing for humans? Is it good for them? What kind of emotion I'm going to create? Am I being respectful of their emotions? Those are like, I think, important principles. At a more strategic and high level, maybe also keeping a healthy dose of skepticism with technology is important. Again, the question why. We've seen many hype cycles of technology for the last 15 years. There was the WebGL microsites, and then we had everybody wanted to do apps, and then it was like VR for a while, and then we had voice, and now the metaverse. They come and go, and each time they come, they leave something, I think, interesting that we build on top of. They don't disappear. But obviously, because it's a hype cycle, there's also always like the slope of disappointment behind, where people lose a bit of interest. So what I'm probably trying to tell people here is like, think about the long game. Try to take the most and the best from each wave and each technology. Think about how you can use it in a meaningful way and not creating gimmick. And also keep believing in yourself. Don't be too disappointed if one tech that looks very promising suddenly is slightly less promising, because it might come back. But keeping that critical sense, I think, is very healthy, though. Like, always wonder yourself, am I improving the user experience here? Am I doing something good? Or am I just in love with my own idea because it looks shiny and it moves everywhere?
I think that's some sound advice there. And then I guess just like lastly, I don't know if Nick, if you have anything else you want to ask, but I was just wondering about the future then. What, like, there's lots of these different things that we've talked about, lots of these things that we're looking at. If you just had to pick just one thing, I mean, what are you most looking forward to the future of this industry?
This industry? I look forward, hopefully, to see a lot of relevant and expected use cases in a year from now that will come to life thanks to all the interest and passion and funding coming into the industry. there are a lot of people right now all over who are wondering, what do we do with the metaverse? What do we do with this? A lot of it relate to short-term gimmicks, but some of it relate to the unexpected genius ideas that we just don't know about yet. And I can't wait to see those. I can't wait to have that haha moment where I see something coming from an unexpected place and I'm just blown away. So that's for me the positive aspect now, is that if you go to creative technology schools around the world, or developer schools or creative schools, a lot of young creators are thinking, what can I do with the metaverse? This thing sounds to be like the future. Maybe I should investigate. And all of it, I hope, will come some work that would have never existed otherwise, and that will again surprise us. So I want to see it.
Yeah, a lot to look forward to then in this space.
Matthieu, thank you so much for being with us. This has been very interesting and enlightening in some way. Thank you so much for finding the time.
Thanks so much, guys, for having me. Thanks for the conversation. We should have counted how many times we say metaverse. I think it's a given now, I guess, in the industry. But I appreciate you giving me a chance to share.
Don't worry, you know, we didn't really say the word NFT in this episode, did we?
Oh wow, yeah, we haven't covered that. I probably we should spend. I think that probably we have like 5 minutes we can talk about.
That could be an entire episode by itself.
I know, but
part of the stuff that Matt is doing was, you know, with the pyramid was, I guess, an NFT in itself.
Yeah, no, that was an NFT project. I think it's probably for another podcast. Let's say that the Web3 and Metaverse are part of the same big bag of interest, passion, but also buzz those days. And so I don't think anything Metaverse has to be NFT, but and I don't think anything NFT has to be Metaverse. But those are interesting topics.
And do you agree with the fact that NFTs are finally creating a profitable market for artists that have been neglected for so many years by the digital economy?
I don't know if I would agree with that. I do think some creators are doing very well in the current creator economy, but that others are struggling. It's very hard to be an artist and stand out online. There's a little bit of a winner-take-all structure for creators those days. If you're not on top of the creator pyramid, you're struggling. So I do believe there's a need to explore new options and new avenues for everybody to make a living out of creativity and art, if you want. So in that way, I think, you know, all the experimentations happening around NFTs are positive. Is it going to lead to like a long-term sustainable industry? I don't know. I'm not sure. But I'm all about encouraging creativity experiments and looking for new things. That might totally flop, or that might be the future. Who knows? But it's worth keeping a look at it, at least. You know, I don't think that we should just dismiss. There are a lot of challenges that need to be solved. So let's look at it a bit more. I don't think everything gonna become NFTs. I don't think everything gonna become Web3.
Absolutely.
It's more complicated, but I feel like there's probably some interesting use cases.
But there will be some emergence of those use cases. There will be some use cases that will win against all the other use cases, and those ones will become the next standards and the next, big thing for companies to chase after.
Could be. Now back to the same question: why?
Where is the value?
Why do you need an NFT, for example? If you have a good answer to that question, I'm like, sure, keep doing it. A lot of people sometimes just can't answer the question why. They take a new tech and do things they could do already in the past with an older tech, and just because they use a new tech, they assume it's good. Sometimes you don't need to reinvent the wheel. But if you come to me with like a totally new use cases with NFT, or like a dramatically improved use case with NFT, why not?
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Matthieu. Thank you
for
being with us.
Bye. Ciao.
Through accessible insights, a solid network of support, and recognizing truly outstanding achievements near or far. Big or small, we're in this together. AIXR.